The transport ship slowed as it approached the orbital station above Velith Prime. Taiho stood at the viewing window and watched the planet grow larger. It was still beautiful. The purple clouds moved across the surface like slow rivers. The 3 moons hung in the darkness behind it. He had forgotten how peaceful this view made him feel. 5 years. 5 years since he last saw this world. 5 years since he left without saying goodbye. Taiho pressed his hand against the cold glass. He was 34 years old now. There were lines around his eyes that had not been there before. His hair was shorter. His shoulders carried a weight that had nothing to do with gravity. He wondered if she would even agree to see him. The other passengers moved past him toward the exit doors. Most of them were Velith, tall beings with silver skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces. They moved with the grace of creatures who had thousands of years to perfect every motion. They glanced at Taiho with curiosity. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Taiho picked up his small bag and joined the line. His heart beat faster as the doors opened and he stepped into the station. The air smelled the same. That was the first thing he noticed. It smelled like flowers that had no name in human language, mixed with the clean scent of advanced technology. He had forgotten this smell, but now it brought back so many memories. He walked toward the customs area. The station was busy with travelers from dozens of worlds. Velith officers stood at scanning points, checking documents and asking questions. Taiho waited in line and tried to stay calm. When he reached the front, the officer looked at his identification card. The officer's 4 eyes blinked one at a time, which was a sign of surprise among the Velith. Taiho, the officer said slowly. Human diplomatic liaison. Status, departed 5 years ago. No return scheduled. I know, Taiho said. I am requesting permission to enter. The officer studied him for a long moment. Then he spoke into a communication device in his own language. Taiho understood some of the words. He heard his name repeated several times. He heard another word that made his stomach tight. The Queen. Wait here, the officer said. Taiho stepped aside and waited. Other travelers passed through customs while he stood alone. Some of them looked at him with expressions he could not read. The Velith were difficult to understand even after years of study. Their faces did not move the way human faces moved. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Taiho began to worry that they would simply send him away. He had no official reason to be here. His diplomatic position had ended when he left. He was just a human with a small bag and a heart full of regret. Then he saw a figure approaching through the crowd. The figure was tall even for a Velith, dressed in the dark uniform of the Royal Military. Other Velith moved aside to let him pass. Taiho recognized him immediately. High Commander Dravosh, the Queen's most trusted advisor, the same officer who had welcomed Taiho 5 years ago when he first arrived as a young diplomat. Dravosh stopped in front of Taiho. His 4 eyes examined the human with an expression that Taiho could not identify. Was it anger, disappointment, something else? You returned, Dravosh said. His voice was deep and rough. Yes, Taiho replied. I know I have no right to be here. I know I left badly, but I needed to come back. Why now? After 5 years? Taiho took a breath. My sister was sick, dying. I had to go home to Earth. There was no time to explain, no time to say goodbye properly. And then Earth closed its borders during the health crisis. No communications in or out for 2 years. By the time I could send a message, I thought it was too late. I thought everyone here had forgotten me. Dravosh made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it had no humor in it. Forgotten you? Human. Do you understand nothing about our kind? I understand that the Velith remember everything. Yes. Everything, every word, every moment, every promise made and broken. Dravosh leaned closer. She remembers the day you left. She remembers waiting for you to return. She remembers every single day of those 5 years. Tai-Ho felt the weight of those words press down on him. He had known this, in theory. The Veleth had perfect memory. They could recall any moment of their long lives with complete clarity, but hearing it said out loud made it real in a way that hurt. "Is she angry?" Tai-Ho asked quietly. Dravash studied him for a long moment. "I have served the Queen for 300 years. I have seen her lead armies. I have seen her negotiate treaties that shape the galaxy. I have seen her face assassination attempts without fear." He paused. "I have never seen her as affected as she was by your departure." Tai-Ho closed his eyes. "I never meant to hurt her. I believe you. That is the only reason I am here instead of soldiers to escort you away." Dravash straightened his posture. "She knows you have arrived. Word travels fast in the Empire. She has not yet decided whether to see you." "I understand. I will wait." "You may wait for a long time. The Veleth do not rush decisions." "I will wait," Tai-Ho repeated. "However long it takes." Something changed in Dravash's expression. It was small, just a slight movement around his eyes, but Tai-Ho had learned to read these tiny signs during his years here. It was respect. "Come with me," Dravash said. "I will take you to guest quarters in the palace. You will stay there until the Queen makes her choice." They walked together through the station and boarded a shuttle to the planet's surface. Tai-Ho watched through the window as they descended through the purple clouds. The capital city appeared below them, a vast collection of crystalline towers that caught the light of the twin suns. It was exactly as he remembered, and it was completely different now. "Dravash," Tai-Ho said as they landed. "How is she? Truly?" The commander was quiet for a moment, then he spoke in a voice so low that Tai-Ho almost missed the words. "She has been waiting. Every day some part of her has been waiting. We all hoped you would return, human. Not for your sake, but for hers." The shuttle doors opened. The warm air of Veleth Prime touched Tai-Ho's face. He stepped out onto the landing platform and looked up at the palace in the distance. Somewhere inside those walls, a queen with perfect memory was deciding his fate, and Tai-Ho knew that whatever happened next, he deserved whatever judgment she would give. He was finally home, but he did not yet know if home would accept him back. Queen Serath stood in her private chamber and looked out at the city below. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. It was beautiful. She had seen this sunset 40,000 times in her long life, and she remembered each one perfectly. But tonight, her mind was not on the sunset. He was here. Tai-Ho was here. She closed her 4 eyes and let the memories come. They came easily, because they never truly left. Every moment she had spent with the human diplomat was preserved in her mind like a painting that never faded. She remembered the first day he arrived. He was young then, only 29 years old, so brief, so temporary. She had expected nothing special from him. Humans came and went like leaves in the wind. Their lives were short, their memories shorter. They were interesting to study but not to know deeply. Then he surprised her. She remembered the night of the border crisis with the Keth Federation. Her advisors had fled the council room when the threats became serious. They feared war. They feared death. But Tai-Ho stayed. He sat in his chair and looked at her with those strange human eyes, only 2 of them, so limited, and asked what he could do to help. "You should leave," she had told him. "This matter does not concern Earth." "You are my friend," he had replied simply. "Your matters concern me." Friend. Such a small word, such a heavy meaning. Serath opened her eyes and touched the glass of her window. Her reflection looked back at her. Silver skin. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The face of a queen who had ruled for 6,000 years. the face of a woman who had been changed by a human who lived only decades. She remembered teaching him about Veleth music. The songs of her people lasted for hours because time meant nothing to those who lived forever. Taiho had listened to an entire song, all 4 hours of it, without complaint. At the end, he had smiled and said it was like watching a flower bloom in slow motion. She remembered him teaching her about human music. Short songs, only minutes long, packed with emotion and meaning. He explained that humans created art quickly because they had so little time. Every song was urgent. Every melody was precious because it came from a brief life. She remembered the afternoon in the garden when he told her about crying. She had asked why humans leaked water from their eyes when they were sad. He laughed and said humans also cried when they were happy. "That makes no sense," she had said. "I know," he agreed. "Humans often make no sense. Our feelings are too big for our bodies, so they spill out." She had thought about that for days. Feelings too big for bodies. She had lived for 6,000 years and never felt that way. Her feelings were controlled, measured, eternal. They did not spill. Until he left. Serath turned away from the window and walked to her desk. A small object sat there, protected by a glass case. It was a paper flower, folded with human hands. Taiho had made it for her on the last day she saw him. "I will bring you a real flower tomorrow," he had said. "From the night garden, the blue ones you like." "I will be here," she had replied. Tomorrow never came. He disappeared in the night. Emergency transport to Earth. No message, no explanation, just absence. She remembered waiting the next day. She remembered asking Drevosh where the human diplomat was. She remembered the confusion, then the worry, then the slow realization that he was not coming back. 312 days. She had counted each one. She remembered them all. Day 1. Perhaps he is sick. Day 30. Perhaps there is a communication problem. Day 100. Perhaps he has forgotten. Day 200. Perhaps I meant nothing to him. Day 300. Perhaps this is what humans do. They leave. By day 312, she had accepted that he was gone forever. She put the paper flower in its case and tried to continue her eternal life as before. But she was not the same. Her advisors noticed. She was more distant in council meetings. She spent more time alone. She no longer attended the celebration festivals that marked Veleth seasons. Some whispered that the human had damaged her somehow. Others said she was simply tired after 6,000 years of rule. Only Drevosh knew the truth. He was the only one she trusted enough to tell. "You loved him," Drevosh had said one night, 2 years after Taiho left. "Do not be foolish," she had replied. "He was a human. They live and die in the blink of our eyes. That does not answer my question." She had not answered. She did not need to. Drevosh knew her too well. Now the human was back, 5 years later, older and changed, but here, in her palace, waiting for her decision. A knock came at her door. She knew it was Drevosh before she spoke. "Enter." The commander walked in and bowed. "He is settled in the guest quarters. He says he will wait as long as necessary." "Of course he will wait. He has no choice." "My queen, may I speak freely?" "You always do?" Drevosh stepped closer. "I have watched you suffer for 5 years. I have seen what his absence did to you. Now he has returned. Will you send him away without even hearing his reasons?" Serath was quiet for a long moment. "If I hear his reasons, I might forgive him. And if I forgive him, I might let him close again. And if I let him close again—" She stopped. "He might leave again," Drevosh finished. "Yes. That is true. He is human. His life is short. Even if he stays, he will eventually die. Either way, you will lose him." Drevosh paused. But you have already lost him once. You survived it. You know you can survive it again. The question is whether the time between is worth the pain. Sarath looked at the paper flower on her desk. Such a small thing. Such a heavy meaning. Bring him to me tomorrow, she said finally. In the throne room. Full court present. Drevosh raised an eyebrow. A formal audience? Not a private meeting? He left without explanation. He can explain himself publicly, as any petitioner would. That seems harsh. I am a queen. I cannot be seen as weak. I cannot be seen as someone who forgives easily. Sarath sat down in her chair. Let him face the court. Let him speak his reasons before my people. Then I will decide what happens next. Drevosh bowed again. As you command. After he left, Sarath sat alone in the growing darkness. The suns had fully set now. The 3 moons rose slowly into the sky. She remembered every moment with Taiho, every smile, every word, every accidental touch that sent strange warmth through her body. She remembered it all with perfect clarity, and she would remember it forever. That was the curse of her kind. They could not forget. And sometimes, remembering was the cruelest thing of all. The throne room was vast. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Hundreds of Veleth nobles stood in perfect lines along the walls, their silver faces turned toward the center of the room. At the far end, on a throne carved from a single massive gemstone, sat Queen Sarath. Taiho walked forward alone. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Every eye in the room was on him. He could feel their judgment, their curiosity, their hostility. A human in the heart of the Veleth Empire. A human who had once been welcome here and had left without a word. He stopped at the proper distance from the throne and bowed deeply. When he rose, he made himself look at her face. She was exactly as he remembered. Silver skin that seemed to glow from within. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, each one a different shade of blue. Features that were both alien and beautiful in a way that human words could not describe. She wore the formal robes of her station, dark purple with threads of gold. She looked at him with no expression at all. "Taiho of Earth," she said. Her voice filled the room without effort. "Former diplomatic liaison to the Veleth Empire, you have requested an audience. Speak." Taiho swallowed. He had prepared words, but standing here in front of her, they seemed weak and small. "Your Majesty," he began, "I came to apologize and to explain." Then explain. 5 years ago, I received an emergency message from Earth. My sister Yuna was dying. A disease had spread through our colony, and she was among the infected. The next transport ship was leaving in 2 hours. If I missed it, I would not reach Earth for another 6 months. By then, she would be dead. He paused. The room was completely silent. I tried to send a message to the palace, but the communication systems were overwhelmed with emergency traffic. I could not get through. I had to choose. Stay and say goodbye properly, or leave and possibly save my sister's life. You chose to leave, Sarath said. Yes, I chose my sister. Without a word to me. Taiho lowered his head. Yes, I believed I would be able to send a message from the transport. I believed I could explain once I reached Earth. But the journey took longer than expected, and when I arrived, Earth was entering a health crisis. All communications with other worlds were shut down. The borders were closed for 2 years. 2 years, Sarath repeated. And the other 3? This was the harder part. Taiho took a breath. After 2 years, Yuna was recovering. The borders opened again. I could have sent a message then. I could have tried to return. He looked up at her. I was afraid. A murmur went through the watching nobles. A human admitting fear in front of the Veleth court was unusual. Fear was considered a weakness among her people. Afraid of what? Sarath asked. afraid that too much time had passed, afraid that you had forgotten me, afraid that I had ruined everything and there was no way to fix it. So I stayed on Earth and told myself that it was better this way. Better to let go than to face what I had done. You thought I had forgotten you? Her voice was cold. Human, do you understand nothing about the Velith? I know you remember everything. I know that now. But at the time I did not fully understand what that meant. I thought perhaps memories fade for everyone. I thought time heals all wounds. Serath stood from her throne. The movement was slow and deliberate. She walked down the steps until she stood directly in front of him, close enough to touch. Let me tell you what I remember, she said, her 4 eyes locked onto his too. I remember our last conversation. It was in the garden, near the fountain with the blue stones. The time was 3 hours before sunset. You were wearing the gray diplomatic uniform with the Earth symbol on the shoulder. You gave me a paper flower that you had folded yourself. Tai-Ho felt his chest tighten. You said these exact words. I will bring you a real flower tomorrow, from the night garden, the blue ones you like. And I replied, I will be here. She stepped even closer. I remember waiting the next day. I remember asking Drevosh where you were at exactly 2 hours past midday. I remember his face when he told me you had left in the night. I remember the temperature of the air in that moment. I remember the angle of the sunlight through the windows. I remember everything. Tai-Ho could not speak. I waited for you, Serath continued. Not for days. Not for weeks. I waited for 312 days before I accepted that you were not coming back. 312 days of perfect memory. 312 days of wondering what I had done wrong. 312 days of replaying every moment we shared, searching for signs that I had missed. Her voice did not rise, but the weight of her words pressed down on him like a physical force. Humans forget. That is your gift and your curse. Pain fades for you. Memories soften. You can move on because the past loses its sharpness. She paused. I cannot move on. For me, the day you left is as clear as this moment. The pain is as fresh as it was 5 years ago. It will be fresh when I am 10,000 years old. Tai-Ho felt tears building in his eyes. He did not try to stop them. I am sorry, he whispered. I am so sorry. I did not understand. I did not know what I was doing to you. No, you did not. I cannot undo what I did. I cannot give you back those years. I can only tell you that I am here now, and I will do whatever you ask to make things right. Serath studied him for a long moment. The throne room was silent enough to hear breathing. You ask for forgiveness, she said finally. But forgiveness for the Velith is not like forgiveness for humans. We cannot forget the wrong. We can only choose to remember something else alongside it, something stronger. Then let me give you something stronger to remember. She tilted her head slightly. You have 7 days. 7 days to show me that your return means more than your departure. 7 days to give me a reason to remember you differently. Tai-Ho nodded. I accept. If at the end of 7 days I am not satisfied, you will leave Velith Prime forever. This is my judgment. I understand. Serath turned and walked back to her throne. She sat down and looked out at her court. This audience is concluded. The human will remain in the palace as my guest for 7 days. He is not to be harmed or interfered with. So I have spoken. The nobles bowed their heads in acceptance. Tai-Ho bowed once more, then turned and walked back through the great hall. His heart was pounding, his hands were shaking, but he had 7 days. 7 days to heal a wound that could not be forgotten. It seemed impossible, but he had crossed the galaxy for this chance, and he would not waste it. On the first day, Serath came to him at sunrise. Tai-Ho was standing on the balcony of his guest quarters, watching the twin suns rise over the city. He heard her footsteps behind him but did not turn around. "You are awake early," she said. "I could not sleep. Humans need sleep. You should rest." "How can I rest when I only have 7 days?" She came to stand beside him at the railing. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the sky change colors together, the way they used to do 5 years ago. "Walk with me," Sarath said finally. They walked through the palace gardens. The flowers were in full bloom, colors that did not exist on Earth spreading in every direction. Taiho remembered the names of some of them. The ones he had forgotten he asked about, and Sarath told him. She was testing him, he realized. Testing whether he had truly forgotten or whether some part of their time together remained in his imperfect human memory. "Do you remember this place?" she asked, stopping near a small pond. Taiho looked around. The pond was filled with silver fish that moved in perfect patterns. Beside it stood a bench made of dark crystal. "Yes," he said slowly. "We sat here once. You were telling me about the history of your people. The first queen, the founding wars, the 1,000 years of peace." He smiled sadly. "I do not remember all the details. But I remember that your voice was calm and your eyes were bright. I remember thinking that I could listen to you talk forever." Sarath sat down on the bench. After a moment, she gestured for him to sit beside her. "What else do you remember?" Taiho sat down. "I remember the taste of the food at the welcome feast. I remember it was strange at first, but I grew to love it. I remember the sound of Velith music, how it seemed to fill not just my ears but my whole body. I remember the way you laughed when I tried to sing along. You were terrible at singing. I was. I still am." Something shifted in her expression. It was not a smile, not quite, but something softer than before. "You remember feelings," she said, "not facts. Humans remember what matters to us emotionally. The details fade, but the feelings stay." He turned to look at her. "You mattered to me. You still matter to me. That is why I came back." Sarath was quiet for a long time. Then she lifted her hand and held it out toward him, palm up. "Among my people, there is a way to share memories directly, mind to mind. If you are willing, I can show you what your absence meant to me, and you can show me what those 5 years meant to you." Taiho looked at her hand. "Will it hurt?" "It might. The truth often does." He placed his hand in hers. The connection hit him like a wave of cold water. Suddenly, he was not in the garden anymore. He was inside her memories. He felt her waiting on the day after he left. The confusion, the worry, the first small seed of fear that something was wrong. He felt her asking Drevosh about the human diplomat. He felt the moment when she learned he had gone. Then came the days of waiting, one after another, each one perfectly preserved. He felt her hope slowly dying. He felt her replaying their conversations, searching for clues. He felt her wondering if she had imagined the connection between them. Day 100. The hope was almost gone now. She had started to accept that he was not coming back. But still, some part of her watched the sky for human ships. Day 200. The acceptance had become pain. She had loved him, she realized now. She had not admitted it before, but watching the memory, Taiho felt the truth of it. She had loved him, and he had left without a word. Day 300. The pain had become something else. A wound that could not heal because it could not be forgotten. Every moment with him was still there, perfect and bright, and every moment of his absence was there too, equally perfect, equally bright. The memories released him. Taiho gasped and opened his eyes. He was crying. He had not felt her tears through the connection, because Velith did not cry, but he cried for both of them. "I did that to you," he whispered. "I did not know. I did not understand. Now you know." Sarath had not released his hand. Her 4 eyes watched him with an expression he could finally read. It was not anger, it was grief. "Show me yours," she said. Taiho closed his eyes and tried to open his mind the way she had. It was harder for humans. Their minds were messier, more chaotic. But he pushed through the difficulty and let the memories flow. He showed her Yuna lying in the hospital bed, her skin gray and her breathing shallow. He showed her the desperate journey home, the fear that he would arrive too late. He showed her the relief when Yuna survived and the guilt that followed immediately after. He showed her the 2 years of isolation on Earth, the closed borders, the silence from the stars. He showed her his nights lying awake, thinking about Velith Prime, thinking about Sarath, wondering if she hated him. He showed her the 3 years after the borders opened, the fear of reaching out, the shame of staying silent, the slow acceptance that he had ruined something precious and could never fix it. And finally, he showed her the day he decided to return. Yuna was strong again, fully recovered. She had asked him why he seemed so sad. He had told her about Sarath, about the connection they had, about his failure to say goodbye. "Then go back," Yuna had said simply. "What is the worst that can happen? She says no and you come home. But what if she says yes?" The memory ended. Sarath released his hand gently. "Your sister is wise," she said quietly. "She always was, even as a child." They sat in silence for a while. The silver fish swam in their endless patterns. The twin suns climbed higher in the sky. "I have a question," Sarath said finally. "Ask. How do you survive the forgetting? How do you live knowing that the things you love will fade in your mind? That eventually you will not remember the faces of people you have lost?" Taiho thought about the question carefully before answering. "We do not survive it," he said. "We carry it. Every human walks around with holes in their memory where important things used to be. We forget the sound of our parents' voices. We forget the exact words of conversations that changed our lives. We forget the faces of friends who moved away." That sounds terrible. It is. But it is also how we keep going. If we remembered everything perfectly, the way you do, I think we would break. The pain would be too much. The joy would be too much. We would drown in our own lives. He turned to face her fully. "You asked how we survive. The answer is that we choose. We choose what to hold on to and what to let go. And we choose to keep making new memories, even knowing we will lose them eventually. That is the human way. We love things we cannot keep. We treasure moments we will forget. We build lives out of sand and call them home." Sarath looked at him for a long moment. "That is either very brave or very foolish." "Probably both," Taiho agreed. "We are usually both." Something changed between them in that moment. Taiho could feel it. The ice was not gone, but it was thinner now. They had 6 more days. Maybe, just maybe, 6 days would be enough. The 5th night found them in the Queen's private garden. This garden was different from the public ones. It was smaller, hidden behind walls of living crystal that blocked the sounds of the city. Only the Queen and those she invited could enter here. Taiho had been here twice before, 5 years ago. He remembered it as a place of peace. They sat on soft grass beneath a tree that glowed faintly in the darkness. The 3 moons hung overhead, casting silver light across the flowers. Somewhere in the distance, a nightbird sang a song that lasted for hours. "I have been thinking," Sarath said, "about what you told me, about choosing what to hold on to." "And what have you concluded?" "I concluded that it must be exhausting." She lay back on the grass, looking up at the moons. "To constantly decide what matters. To know that you are forgetting important things and be unable to stop it. To watch your own past disappear piece by piece. Tai-Ho lay down beside her. The grass was soft and warm, adapting to his body temperature the way all Veleth plants did. It is exhausting sometimes, he admitted, but it also gives us freedom. Freedom? Yes, freedom to change, freedom to grow, freedom to become different people than we were before. He turned his head to look at her. You said you remember everything. Does that mean you are still the same person you were 6,000 years ago? Sarath considered the question. In some ways, yes. I remember being young. I remember my first years as queen. I remember every lesson, every mistake, every triumph. All of it is still with me. But has it changed you? Or do you just carry more weight with each passing year? She was quiet for a long moment. I carry more weight, she said finally. Every year, more memories. Every year, more things that cannot be undone or forgotten. Sometimes I feel like I am being crushed by my own past. Humans have a different problem. Sometimes we forget the things that made us who we are. We lose pieces of ourselves and do not even notice they are gone. Tai-Ho paused. But that also means we can heal. We can let go of pain. We can forgive, even ourselves. Can you forgive yourself for leaving? The question hurt, but he answered honestly. I am trying. It is hard. Every time I look at you, I remember what I did. But the memory is softer than it was 5 years ago. The sharp edges have worn down. He smiled sadly. That is the human way. We are gentle with our own pain, whether we want to be or not. Sarath turned onto her side, facing him. Her 4 eyes reflected the moonlight. What do you remember about me? She asked. From before. What stayed with you? Tai-Ho thought carefully. I remember that you were kind when you did not have to be. I was a young diplomat from a small planet. I had nothing to offer the Veleth Empire. But you treated me with respect. You invited me to events. You asked my opinions. You made me feel like I mattered. You did matter. I know that now. But at the time, I thought you were just being polite. Then came the night of the border crisis. Everyone left the room except you and me. I asked if I should go too, and you said... He paused, trying to remember the exact words, knowing he could not. I said, if you wish to leave, I will not stop you. But if you wish to stay, I would welcome your company. Yes, something like that. Tai-Ho smiled. I do not remember the exact words, but I remember what I felt when you said them. I felt like I had finally found a place where I belonged. A human belonging with the Veleth. Many would find that strange. I found it strange too, at first. Then I stopped thinking about it and just enjoyed being here. Being with you. They lay in comfortable silence for a while. The night bird continued its endless song. The moons moved slowly across the sky. I want to ask you something, Tai-Ho said eventually. Something that has been on my mind since I arrived. Ask. If I stayed this time, if I never left again, would you want that? Would you want someone who will forget your face? Someone who will die before you have finished a single thought by Veleth standards? Someone who will be gone in what must feel like a moment to you? Sarath did not answer immediately. She sat up slowly and looked out at her garden, at the flowers that would bloom for centuries, at the trees that would stand for thousands of years. I have lived for 6,000 years, she said. I have ruled an empire. I have seen stars born and die. I have experienced more than any human could imagine. And I will experience much more before I am done. She turned back to him. But in all those years, I have never felt the way I felt when you were here. And I have never felt the way I felt when you left. You say you forgot the color of the sky on Veleth Prime. I say, so what? You came back anyway. You crossed the galaxy not because you remembered, but because you chose to. She reached out and touched his face. Her hand was cool against his skin. That is worth more than 10,000 years of perfect memory. Choice, intention, the decision to return even when the details have faded. That is something my people do not understand. We remember everything, so we do not have to choose. We are prisoners of our own past because we cannot escape it. Taiho covered her hand with his own. You are not a prisoner. You chose to grant me an audience. You chose to spend these days with me. You chose to share your memories. Those were all choices. Choices I made because I remember everything we had. Choices made from the weight of the past, not the hope of the future. Then let me give you hope for the future. He sat up and faced her directly. I will forget things. I will forget the exact words of this conversation. I will forget what the moons looked like tonight. I will forget small moments that you will remember perfectly forever. He took both her hands in his. But I will never forget that you matter to me. I will never forget that I love you. And I will choose you every day until the day I die. That is what humans do. We cannot promise perfect memory. We can only promise imperfect love given freely for as long as we live. Sarath's 4 eyes glistened. For a moment, Taiho thought she might cry, but then he remembered that Velith did not have tears. You love me, she said quietly. Yes, I think I always did. I was just too afraid to say it. And if I let you stay, if I let you into my life again, you will eventually die. You will leave me not by choice but by nature. And I will remember every moment of our time together, perfectly, forever, even the moment when you are gone. Yes. That sounds like a cruel gift. Taiho shook his head. No, it sounds like a human gift, brief and bright and precious because it ends. He squeezed her hands. Let me give you memories worth carrying. Let me give you reasons to smile when you think of me 1,000 years from now. Let me give you proof that something temporary can still be meaningful. Sarath looked at him for a long time. The moons continued their slow journey. The night birds sang on. I need time to think, she said finally. You have 2 more days of my 7. I know. She stood up slowly. Walk me back to the palace? They walked together through the silver light. Their hands touched briefly, then parted, then touched again. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing more to say until she made her decision. At the entrance to her private chambers, she paused. Taiho? Yes? Thank you. For coming back. For explaining. For... She hesitated. For teaching me what your kind of memory means. Thank you for giving me the chance. She went inside. The door closed behind her. Taiho stood alone in the hallway for a long time, feeling something that might have been hope. 2 more days, 2 more chances, 2 more opportunities to show her that impermanent love was still love. He would make them count. On the 6th day, the court came for him. Taiho was eating breakfast in his guest quarters when Dravash arrived with a troubled expression. The commander stood in the doorway and spoke quickly. There is a situation. The noble houses have gathered. They are demanding an immediate council session regarding your presence here. Taiho set down his food. What kind of situation? The kind where old families with long memories decide they do not want a human in the palace. They have been watching you with the queen. They do not approve. Do they have the power to force me out? Dravash hesitated. No. Only the queen can do that. But they can make things very difficult. They can withdraw support from her rule. They can create problems that would take centuries to solve. The queen values stability. They know this. Taiho stood up. What should I do? The queen has asked for you to attend the council session. She wants you to hear what they say. Dravash paused. And perhaps to respond. They walked together through the palace corridors. Servants and officials watched them pass with expressions that ranged from curiosity to open hostility. Word had spread through the entire empire by now. The human who broke the queen's heart had returned, and the queen had welcomed him back. Some saw it as weakness, some saw it as madness. Very few saw it as what it actually was. The great council chamber was even larger than the throne room. Seats rose in tiers around a central speaking area, filled with hundreds of nobles from dozens of great houses. At the highest tier sat Queen Sarath, alone on her crystal throne. Taiho was led to a position at the edge of the speaking area. He stood there, exposed and alone, while the nobles looked down at him. One noble rose from his seat. He was old even by Velith standards, his silver skin faded to pale gray. "I am Lord Vareth of House Morning Star," he announced. "I speak for the coalition of noble houses. We demand to know why this human remains in the palace." Sarath's voice came from above. "He remains because I have granted him 7 days. Today is the 6th. 7 days for what purpose? He abandoned you. He abandoned his post. He disappeared without explanation and returned 5 years later expecting forgiveness." Vareth gestured toward Taiho. "This human represents everything wrong with his species. They are unreliable. They are forgetful. They live and die in moments. They have no understanding of permanence or loyalty." A murmur of agreement went through the chamber. "What message does it send?" Vareth continued. "When our eternal queen entertains a creature who cannot even remember his own promises? What does it tell our allies? What does it tell our enemies?" Another noble stood. "I am Lady Silith of House Winter Moon. I add my voice to this concern. The Queen's attachment to this human has been noted throughout the Empire. It is seen as a weakness. Some whisper that the human has somehow corrupted her mind." "I have not been corrupted," Sarath said coldly. "Then prove it. Send him away. Show the Empire that the Queen of the Velith is not controlled by her feelings for a brief-lived alien." More voices joined in. They spoke of duty, of tradition, of the dangers of human influence. They spoke of Sarath's changed behavior over the past 5 years. They implied, without quite saying, that she was unfit to rule if she could not let go of one insignificant human. Taiho listened to it all. His hands were clenched at his sides, but he did not speak. It was not his place to defend himself in this chamber. Only the Queen could do that. Finally, Sarath raised her hand. The chamber fell silent. "You have spoken your concerns," she said. "Now I will speak mine." She stood from her throne and walked down the tiers until she reached the speaking area. She stood beside Taiho, facing her court. "Lord Vareth, you said this human represents everything wrong with his species. Let me tell you what he actually represents." Her 4 eyes swept across the chamber. 5 years ago, he sat beside me during the border crisis when every one of you fled. He stayed not because he was ordered to, but because he chose to. That is what humans do. They choose. They decide in the moment what matters to them. They are not prisoners of their past or their instincts. They are free in a way that we, with our perfect memories and eternal lives, can never be. She gestured toward Taiho without looking at him. "You say he is unreliable because he left without explanation. But he left to save his dying sister. He left because family mattered more than protocol, and when he could return, he chose to come back. He crossed the galaxy, knowing I might reject him, because he decided that trying was better than never knowing." "Pretty words," Vareth said, "but they do not change the facts. He is human. He will die. He will forget. He will leave you again, one way or another." "Yes," Sarath agreed. "He will die. Perhaps in 50 years, perhaps in 30. By Velith standards, he will be gone in a moment." She paused. "And I will remember every instant of our time together, every conversation, every shared sunrise, every moment of joy and every moment of pain." She turned to face Vareth directly. You speak of weakness. Let me tell you about weakness. Weakness is hiding from the world because you fear being hurt. Weakness is refusing to love because love carries risk. Weakness is living for 6,000 years and learning nothing about what makes life worth living. Her voice grew stronger. This human taught me something that all of you, with your ancient houses and endless memories, have forgotten. He taught me that brief things can be precious, that impermanent connections can be meaningful, that choosing to return, choosing to stay, choosing to love even knowing it will end, that is not weakness. That is courage. The chamber was absolutely silent. I am your queen, Sarath continued. I have ruled this empire for 6,000 years. I have led you through wars and peace, through expansion and consolidation, through challenges that most of you cannot even remember. I have earned the right to make my own choices. She walked back toward the tears, then turned one final time. This human will stay as long as he wishes to stay. Not because he has power over me, but because I choose to have him here. And if any of you cannot accept that choice, you are welcome to challenge me directly. Otherwise, this council session is over. No one moved. No one spoke. Even Lord Vareth sat back down slowly. Sarath climbed back to her throne and sat down. Dismissed. The nobles began to file out, many of them casting glances at Taiho as they passed. Some looked angry, some looked confused. A few looked thoughtful. When the chamber was nearly empty, Sarath descended again and approached Taiho. You said nothing, she observed. It was not my place to speak. No, but you listened. You heard what they think of your kind. They are not entirely wrong, Taiho said. Humans are unreliable. We do forget. We do die quickly. Everything they said was true. And yet I chose you anyway. Taiho looked up at her. Does this mean I can stay? Sarath was quiet for a moment. Then she did something he had never seen before. She smiled. Not a large smile, not a human smile, but a slight softening of her features that transformed her face entirely. You have one more day. Let us not waste it talking to politicians. She held out her hand. Taiho took it, and they walked out of the great council chamber together. Behind them, Drevosh watched with an expression that might have been satisfaction. He had served the queen for 300 years. He had never seen her look so certain of anything. Perhaps the human was worth keeping after all. 5 years had passed since Taiho's return. The palace was decorated for a celebration tonight, but Taiho stood alone on his favorite balcony, watching the twin suns begin their descent. His hair had more gray in it now. The lines around his eyes had deepened. He was 39 years old, past the halfway point of a human life, and he had never been happier. A transport ship appeared in the sky above the city. Taiho smiled and went to meet it. Yuna stepped off the landing platform with wide eyes and an expression of wonder. She was 33 now, healthy and strong, with none of the fragility that had nearly killed her a decade ago. She looked at the crystal towers, at the purple sky, at the alien world that had become her brother's home. This is real, she said. This is actually real. What did you expect? I do not know. Something less beautiful, maybe. She turned to Taiho and hugged him tightly. I missed you. I missed you too. Thank you for coming. Thank you for finally inviting me. 10 years you have been talking about this place, and you only now think to bring me here? Taiho laughed. I wanted to make sure it was permanent first. They walked together through the palace gardens. Taiho pointed out the places that mattered to him, the pond where he and Sarath had their first real conversation about memory, the bench where she shared her pain with him, the night garden where the blue flowers grew. You talk about her like she is a miracle, Yuna observed. She is. At least, she is to me. And she feels the same way about you? Taiho paused beside a fountain. The water made soft music as it fell. "She remembers everything," he said. "Every moment we have shared in the past 10 years is perfectly preserved in her mind. She will remember me long after I am gone. Long after everyone who ever knew me is gone. In a way, I will live forever through her memories." That sounds beautiful and sad at the same time. Most things worth having are both. They continued walking until they reached the private garden. Sarath was waiting there, standing beneath the glowing tree where she and Taiho had shared so many nights. Yuna stopped when she saw the queen. Even after all of Taiho's descriptions, she was not prepared for the reality. Sarath was beautiful in a way that human words could not capture, and she looked at Taiho with an expression that Yuna recognized immediately. It was love. Alien. Ancient, eternal love. "You must be Yuna," Sarath said. Her voice was warm. "Your brother has told me so much about you. I feel like I know you already." Yuna bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, thank you for allowing me to visit. Please call me Sarath. Any family of Taiho is family of mine." She gestured toward the palace. "Come. There is a celebration tonight, the anniversary of Taiho's return." "You celebrate that?" Sarath and Taiho exchanged a look. "It is the most important date in my recent memory," Sarath said simply. They spent the evening at the celebration. Velith nobles who had once wanted Taiho removed now greeted him with respect. 5 years of watching him stand beside their queen had changed their opinions. He was still human, still temporary, but he was also loyal, kind, and somehow good for their eternal ruler. Yuna watched her brother move through the crowd with confidence. He was not the same uncertain young man who had left Earth all those years ago. He was someone comfortable in his own skin, someone who had found his place in the universe. Late in the evening, when the celebration began to wind down, Yuna found Sarath standing alone near a window. "May I ask you something?" Yuna said. "Of course." "Why him? Of all the beings in the galaxy, why my brother?" Sarath turned to look at her. Her 4 eyes were thoughtful. "Because he came back," she said. "Because he chose me, not out of duty or ambition, but because he wanted to be here. Because he taught me that brief things can be precious. Because loving someone who will eventually leave is not weakness. It is the bravest kind of strength." She looked across the room at Taiho, who was laughing at something a Velith official had said. "I have lived for 6,000 years. I will live for many thousands more. In all that time, I have never met anyone who made me feel the way he does, and I would rather have 50 years with him than 10,000 years without." Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. "He says the same things about you." "I know. I remember every time he has said them." Later, when the celebration was over and Yuna had retired to her guest quarters, Taiho and Sarath walked together to their balcony. It was their place now, the spot where they watched sunsets and sunrises, where they talked about everything and nothing, where they simply existed together. The twin suns had set hours ago. The 3 moons hung in the sky, casting silver light across the city. "Your sister is lovely," Sarath said. "She likes you too. She told me you were surprisingly warm for an immortal alien queen." Sarath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "High praise from a human." They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Taiho's hand found hers, as it always did. "I have been thinking," he said eventually. "About what?" "About what I have forgotten, about what I have lost without even noticing." He smiled sadly. "I cannot remember our first sunset together anymore. I know it happened. I know it was beautiful. But the details are gone. I remember it perfectly. 3rd month of your first year here. You said the colors looked like a painting that someone had set on fire. Did I really say that?" "Yes, word for word." Taiho shook his head. "My own poetry, lost to me forever." "How embarrassing." "I remember enough for both of us," Sarath said gently. She had said those words before, many times over the years. They had become a kind of promise between them. She would remember, he would forget, and somehow, together, they would carry everything that mattered. Tai-Ho turned to face her. The moonlight made her silver skin glow. "I love you," he said. "I know I have said it before. I know you remember every time, but I want to say it again. I want you to have another memory of this moment." "Why this moment?" "Because we are here. Because your moons are beautiful tonight. Because my sister came to visit and she likes you. Because I am happy right now, and I want you to remember me being happy." Sarath reached up and touched his face. Her hand was cool and gentle. "I will remember this moment forever," she said, "and I will remember every moment after. And when you are gone, I will remember you, not as a wound that cannot heal, but as a gift I was lucky to receive." Tai-Ho leaned forward and kissed her. He had done this many times before, and he would do it many times again. But each time felt new because he could not quite remember the times before. That was the human way. Brief and bright and precious because it ended. And the queen who remembered everything learned that the most important memories are not the ones forced upon us by perfect recall. They are the ones we choose to treasure. The ones we hold close even as the details fade. The ones that stay with us not because we cannot forget them, but because we cannot imagine our lives without them. Outside their window, the three moons continued their slow journey across the sky. The twin suns would rise again in a few hours, and tomorrow there would be new memories to make. They had time, not infinite time. Humans never had that, but enough time to matter. And in the end, mattering was all that anyone could ask for.